Hi guys. Um, what I'm going to do on this video is talk to you about what I would have talked to you about in class and tell you what you need to do to see the things that I would have shown you in class. So we are beginning the 20th century, and right now we're looking at 1900 to 1945, just the first part of the 20th century. And there are a few changes that you need to be aware of from the Romantic period. During the Romantic period, our composers and our artists and our writers were expressing their own feelings through their work. And when we get into the 20th century, we see kind of getting away from that and people thinking that the emotion and the feelings of those people were overexpressed. So they want to see something that is more for their entertainment and in different styles. And so one of the first things that we look at in the 20th century is actually a style called Impressionism. And if you look in your book on page 315, we have Impressionism and Symbolism. And you will see there a painting by Claude Monet, who was a very famous French Impressionist painter. And this is kind of the painting that got the whole movement started. This is called Impressionism Sunrise. And this is something that was shown at an exhibition in 1874, which is before the 20th century. But this is what started the whole movement. And then symbolist poetry came in. And symbolist poetry was also originated by French poets. And symbolist poetry tried to follow this example of Impressionist art by never actually stating the subject, but talking about it and creating an atmosphere and a mood so that the reader could figure out what it was about for themselves. And that's what this art is as well. The style of painting is very ethereal. Bright colors are not really used and straight lines are not really used. It's very splotchy color and little dots of color to kind of create the whole of the picture. And symbolist poetry was kind of fluid, suggestive of the subject matter, and not naming the subject, but talking about it. Now, when we get into music, on page 316, you have information about Claude Debussy, who was really the originator of the Impressionistic style of music. And he was also French. He really was into the symbolist poetry, and he honestly preferred his music to be called symbolist music rather than impressionistic. But he was a French musician who studied at the Conservatory in Paris, and he was showing talent from the time he was 10. And as he grew up, that talent became more apparent. He did win, when he was at school, the prestigious Prix de Rome, which was a prize that gave him kind of a scholarship to study for 3 years in Rome. And he was able to go there and learn more about composition and music in general. But he left after only 2 years because he felt like he didn't have any musical inspiration there, and he wanted to go back to Paris. So he did that. He was influenced a lot by his visits to Russia, and he worked as a pianist for Tchaikovsky's patroness, Nadezhda von Meck, if you remember her. And he had a lifelong interest in Russian music after that. He was also influenced by Asian music. And so some of these ideas and sounds would appear in his own compositions later. For years, he lived a very unsettled life. He earned a small income by teaching piano. His friends were mostly writers, and so he attended literary gatherings pretty regularly. He was not known a lot to the musical public and not completely sure of himself. He was a little insecure. So he began composing kind of with this insecure attitude. And he wrote a tone poem called Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, which you will find in your assignments, which was very successful. And so from there on, he was kind of more recognized. And then he wrote an opera called Pelléas and Mélisande. And this was a huge success. And so this is where he became famous, and he was considered the most important living French composer after this time. Now, for more information about him and about his personal life, please watch the history of Claude Debussy, the video that I have in your module. There was a lot about his personal life you may want to know. And you should know that he died very early in the 20th century in 1918. His music was meant to evoke a mood or an atmosphere. It was not meant to state the subject of the music. And so a lot of his music was about nature, reflections in the water, clouds, sounds and perfumes swirl in the evening air. Even the titles are evocative of a mood or an atmosphere for the music. His music is very free, it's very spontaneous, very fluid. Very often you will not hear a constant beat in his music. You will not hear a key. He uses instruments kind of as sound effects, and there are a lot of shimmery, tinkly kinds of sounds in his music. There is an example of one of his best known compositions in your module as well, and it is Clair de Lune. Now, this was originally written for piano, and it has been orchestrated as well, and that is what you will be hearing. In your assignments, you will find Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, and here the sound effects that he created with instruments are even more apparent. So read the information about the story of it before listening to it, okay? It is in your book on page 318. Now, another person who could be considered an impressionistic composer was Maurice Ravel, and he is also French. He was a master of the use of tone color in the orchestra and with the piano. He was younger than Debussy. He grew up in Paris, studied piano and composition also at the Paris Conservatory. He was a recognized composer, but he was at the time probably not as recognized as Debussy. Now, by the time he was older, he was considered France's most famous living composer. So things change throughout the lifetime of these people. He really wasn't exclusively an impressionistic composer. He fit into a lot of different stylistic categories, but there is one piece of music that I would like for you to listen to, and it is not in your book and it is not in your assignments. You'll need to look it up on YouTube. And it is called Fountains. And you will find it on page 320. In the second paragraph, you will find the French name so that you can look that up and listen to it. This is the very fluid, misty atmosphere associated with Impressionism. And this is one of his pieces that is definitely impressionistic. Now, another piece that you will find in your assignments is Bolero, and it is not impressionistic. This is one of the best known of all orchestral works across the board, and this reflects Ravel's fascination with tone color and Spanish music and rhythmic repetition. And you will find that the same rhythm is played from the beginning through the end of the piece, all the way through by a snare drum. And this is definitely a Spanish style. And it comes from an opera that he wrote, and it's set in a Spanish cafe, and the ballet centers on a young gypsy woman dancing a bolero on a table surrounded by men. A bolero is a traditional Spanish dance. This also you will find in your assignments, okay? So there's one more composer that I want you to definitely read about. Her name is Lily Boulanger, and she's not as well known, but she's important because she is the first woman to win one of these composition prizes, the Rome Prize. And she didn't live a very long life either. She was sickly from the time that she was a child. So please read the information about her on page 323, and you will find a piece of hers, Psalm 24, in your assignments as well. Now, I know that your reading only goes through page 328 this week, and that includes Igor Stravinsky. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to talk to you about him in class, okay? So only go that far, and watch the videos that I have posted for you in your module. They will give you more information than I can in this short lecture. And if you have any questions or problems, please do get in touch with me, okay? And I will see you after Thanksgiving, because that'll be the next time we have class. Thank you.